Hello and welcome to Special Dialogue. I am Luisa Kusnandar with you. And with us here in the studio, we have Denzel Mitchell Jr., all the way from Baltimore. Thanks for coming all the way here to Indonesia. Your first time here?
Yes.
That's great. All right, let me just read a little bit of bio of your what you've done so far. You are an American urban agriculturalist and cook. And back home, you have been actively mentoring new farmers, organizing farmers markets, and also advising others in starting small farms.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. That's just a short bio of you. I have plenty more right here. Okay, well, before we go straight to the dialogue, we will go to a background story all the way from Maryland. Well, let's see how the people in Charm City, Maryland grow fresh greens and carrots in the middle of the city.
We want people to know where their food comes from. We want people to have healthy lifestyles and healthy choices. We also want to support farmers. Baltimore City wants to see urban agriculture thrive.
And from up here, looking down into the Sandtown Winchester community in Baltimore City, the future of urban ag looks promising. Over the past few years, there's been an increase in the number of urban farms sprouting up in the city.
So in 2013, Baltimore City adopted an urban agricultural plan, and it's the vision for the city. So since 2013, our number of farms and acreage have doubled. So in 2013, we had approximately 10 farms, and now we have 35. In 2013, we had approximately 11 acres, and now we have almost 20.
In fact, Baltimore City has a sustainability plan with an entire chapter dedicated to what urban agriculture in Baltimore City should look like. And over the years, they found ways to encourage farming through incentives to make it easier.
Where we sit right now is Strength of Love 2, and they have a land leasing initiative with the city. So they lease the land from the city for 5 years, and that allows farms to be able to use public lands.
In 2013, Strength to Love 2 started growing produce, mostly leafy greens, on 1.5 acres under the sun. Today, 16 hoop houses shade their greens, but getting to this point had its challenges.
The first thing that happened is that we needed to change the building code so that we could have hoop houses like this. So prior to changing the building code, they were not allowed to have hoop houses. And once we changed that building code, that is why Strength to Love 2 can have hoop houses, and so many of them.
Making good use of otherwise abandoned land. Farm manager Denzel Mitchell sees this as an opportunity to turn vacant land into an asset.
Farms like this definitely address some of the food insecurity issues that exist in the city. There's quite a bit of vacant, abandoned land around the city. Operations like this create some beauty for the neighborhood.
And most importantly, it provides fresh produce and employment opportunities for those looking for a fresh start.
This farm was created to give employment to people coming home from incarceration so that they could be trained, be employed, and so they would have a place also that they could call home within their neighborhood.
While employees choose not to be on camera, today is in fact one of the busiest days of the week here. It's harvest day. Denzel does what he enjoys most, getting his hands dirty.
I grew up farm adjacent, as I like to say. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I spent a lot of time on a farm, and my family, both sets of grandparents, my mom, were really deeply connected to the land. Feeding people is something that's very deep and powerful for me. And so, you know, that's what brings me to work every day.
But it wasn't until Denzel actually started farming that he felt a real connection with food.
But I really felt like I understood food fully when I kind of made it to the other side of the food transaction and understood what it took to bring the food to the table.
The freshly harvested carrots are ready for their bath. Today's carrots and greens will be sold at the Farm Alliance stand at the Waverly Farmers Market.
Farm Alliance is a collective, a working group of urban farms throughout the city. And so the Farm Alliance has kind of filled that void in creating resources such as a greenhouse and shared refrigeration space and then a shared marketing space to be able to support urban farms, to feed more people, and to grow more farmers, frankly.
Denzel serves on the board for the Farm Alliance of Baltimore City. It's an important collaboration that Strength to Love 2 counts on.
The collaboration has definitely helped us to stay in business. I think that the Farm Alliance provides a model, well, provides another model for a way to further urban agriculture and support urban farms.
Beyond the harbor, arts, business, and entertainment, the hope is the cityscape of the future will continue leaving space for the life and soul-sustaining work of growing food for ourselves and our neighbors.
Well, that's a brief story about what Urban Farm is in Maryland. Can you tell us more about what's happening there?
Oh, sure. That is the Strength to Love 2 farm located in Sandtown, Winchester neighborhood in West Baltimore. I managed and was program director of that farm and their program for 3 years before I joined the Farm Alliance. They're a valued member of the Farm Alliance of Baltimore. It is a food security program that operates in a lower economic neighborhood and supports the residents in that neighborhood, and also provides job and technical skills in urban agriculture.
When was it built?
It was built in 2012, I believe, and it's been operating very strong ever since, and I came on in 2017, so I served there from 2017 to 2020.
So it's still been growing, and it's growing strongly now.
Still growing. They produce mainly in high tunnels, and they distribute produce throughout Baltimore City and into Washington, D.C. They have a very nice greenhouse there and a community park.
It looks really organized there in the video. And to be honest, Denzel, that's my first time seeing what an urban farm looks like. We don't have that in Jakarta. And I haven't seen that actually in big cities here. Could you please explain to us, the viewers here, what actually is the concept of urban farm?
Yeah, so urban farm is food production or beauty or ornamental growing site located in a city, in an urban setting. In Baltimore, just like in Jakarta, folks come together and use the technical know-how and skill of growing to produce food for themselves, for their family, for their community, and for a small market segment. We've been to several urban farms in and around Jakarta that have been ran and managed by some wonderful women, and they produce food for their families, they produce food for market, and so there was a lot of similarities between the work that we do at the Farm Alliance of Baltimore and what we saw here in Indonesia. But it's really about growing where you are and maximizing small space for agricultural production.
Well, the one in the video we saw just now was quite a big space.
Oh, yes.
Well, you've been in Jakarta for a week now. Can you tell us what is your current mission in Jakarta?
So I am here as a reciprocal exchange fellow with the YSEALI program, Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative. We hosted Rito Bilak last year from East-West Indonesia. He came to us from Jakarta and spent a month in Baltimore. And while we were there, we had the idea to submit a proposal to the State Department for me to come and do the same. And so I'm here to share knowledge, exchange experience, meet people, and advise, in some cases, some of the growing practices that are happening on urban farms around Indonesia. So it's just been about sharing and learning and making connections and networking with other growers, and recognizing that some of our practices are the same, many of the vegetables that we grow are the same, and you know, it's really about creating technical know-how, creating network, and building food security and creating food justice for everybody.
Well, you've been here for 1 week. Can you share us where have you been and what have you seen so far? Like, what is the state of our urban farming so far?
Wow, yeah, so we've been to four farms now at this point. I can't remember the locations, all of them, but we went to Bandung, Bogor, Cibubur, South Jakarta.
Yes.
And the farms are thriving. They're beautiful. People are utilizing incredibly innovative practices and utilizing the space very well. We've seen field production, we've seen hydroponics, we've seen aquaponics, we've seen medicinal herbs, we have seen fruit production, we've seen some greenhouse growing, we've seen some indoor growing, and so the food production movement, the urban agriculture movement in Jakarta is very strong here. And it's been very inspiring and incredibly impressive to see that so many people are interested in capturing their food production, but then also sharing what they're producing with the folks that they live with. We've seen composting, we've seen some seed production, we've seen some grain production, very small scale grain production, which is quite uncommon in Baltimore. Folks here grow what they call waxy corn. In the US, we call dent corn that we use to make cornmeal, but folks here call it waxy corn. And so to see some of that growing in such small places right in the middle of the city has been quite amazing.
So you've had quite a full package of like sharing your original thoughts here in Jakarta and also learning something in hand.
Absolutely.
All right, we will go for a quick break right now. Stay with us on Special Dialogue. You're back with us on Special Dialogue. I'm Luisa Kusnander here with Denzel Mitchell Jr. all the way from Baltimore. You shared with us about what urban farming is, and you've seen a lot of urban farms around Jakarta and also other parts of Indonesia. Can you share with us, so far from what you see, what is the potential of urban farms in Indonesia? How can we improve to make it better?
Oh, wow. There's great potential. One of the things that's been really interesting about Jakarta is that so much of the green space here is already well utilized. It's beautiful, very well maintained. You know, for me and my team, it's been a great juxtaposition of what we consider to be tropical houseplants that are thriving everywhere at home in Indonesia in the tropics, but then also to be able to see annuals as vegetables, many of which we recognize and eat quite regularly. So this seems like an ideal place to be able to farm. But there's a great amount of potential for much of the urban space to grow food, and it's been amazing to go to a neighborhood and just see like a very small section and somebody is growing jahe, or you go to another small section and some eggplants or chilies are growing. Again, very similar to some sections of Baltimore. And I think that as urban agriculture becomes more and more popular, more people will grow just a little bit and bring into their homes and inspire younger generations to continue to produce their own food. It's
interesting that you mentioned we have a lot of urban farms here when based on what I see in Jakarta, we have such limited space. Now, what do you think can we do to make it better? Like, are we supposed to make urban farms in a bigger space, or how do you think we can go about it?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think that the development could be integrated as a new space is being developed, set some space aside for urban agriculture. Also, there's opportunity for rooftop growing, which is kind of a newer practice.
Rooftop growing.
Rooftop, yeah.
Okay.
Putting a farm on the rooftop.
Yes.
So if it's flat, and in many places we've seen that. There's some trees or ornamental plantings on the roof that looks very beautiful from afar. You could also utilize that space to grow food, or even to keep bees, or even maybe even have some tree fruit there. But also just integrating and thinking about that being a part of what the plan is for how you how you develop a space. And so, yes, it is an incredibly dense city. It is very, very heavily constructed in there, but there are little sections where you could utilize that space to grow flowers or even grow a little bit of food. The first neighborhood that we went to, you know, they just had like just a few little corners here and there, but they built up soil beds and had Cancun planted.
Cancun.
Cancun.
Nice accent.
Thank you, thank you. That people were harvesting pretty regularly.
Yes.
And then yesterday in South Jakarta, they had just a very small hydroponic system that took up a very, very small footprint just behind someone's house, and it was producing pak choy, kangkung, and what we call amaranth. I think you all call spinach here in Indonesia. And so it's very, very easy to do. And the benefit here in Indonesia is that it's always nice and sunny.
Yes.
It never really gets cold. And so there's lots of potential, but it's really just about thinking forward in what type of future we all want to have. And you know, food is important to all of us. I know that it is incredibly important to Indonesians. I know because every place that we've gone, folks have been incredibly generous, and I've been well fed. So I know that food is very, very important. And so just thinking about all the locations that it can be in, I think is a way to continue.
But of course, you would say that we need more support from the government to make this a conscious effort to build more urban farms in Jakarta. Yeah.
Well, I think yes. I think that there could be more support from the government always to support people in these very progressive and constructive practices. As we've learned, the government is doing a lot of that. The local districts are providing land and water access to operate these gardens, but then also just creating partnerships with organizations that are already doing the work. So for us, the Farm Alliance of Baltimore has worked with Baltimore city government to support and build farms. Our farm that is being developed in South Baltimore is from strong support from city government, but also East West Indonesia has worked with local government to support many of the farms, provide seed, technical know-how, resources, and expert advice from their team. And so again, there's a lot of mirroring in that activity, which is why it was such a great partnership for Rito to come and spend time with us.
All right. Now, let's move on to a bit of your personal background here. It says that you have had to jump career from culinary to farming. Can you please explain to us how your background is jumping into this industry?
My career has been kind of like a bowl of noodles.
Okay.
I've always been interested, very, very interested in working in food. And my whole career has been me working in food from production to consumption. So when I was very young, I wanted to be a chef, but I had growing experience from both of my grandmothers and my aunties. They taught me about vegetables. They taught me about growing vegetables. And so I recognized the importance of eating locally and eating sustainably. And so that kind of directed my path through culinary. But I've spent the last 30 years cooking professionally, and I still cook professionally today. And when the farming didn't work to support the family, then I cooked. When I wasn't cooking, I was farming. Now, I'm very grateful to be able to do both. And so most of my professional time is spent in urban agriculture as a co-executive director of the Farm Alliance, but I also cook professionally at a local Baltimore eatery called Black Sauce Kitchen. And so I get to do both. And a lot of times the vegetables that we grow, we bring into the kitchen.
So you combine both worlds. Absolutely.
So, you know, again, being here in Indonesia was absolutely perfect because the eggplants that they were growing here, now I get to eat them.
And among your 1 week of traveling, during your 1 week of traveling, what cuisine have you enjoyed so far? What has been new for your own taste buds?
I'd say the newest thing for my own taste buds and the favorite is uli, which we had in Subang. And it was just a beautiful, amazing experience to be up in the mountains, overlooking tea farms.
Nice view.
The beautiful view.
Beautiful view.
And she was grilling sticky rice over this charcoal grill, and it was just very homely. And you know, we we just enjoyed an amazing meal with peanut sambal and toasted coconut, beer, the beer jahe or beer Coke Joe. Help me. Help me out. Beer,
Pletok, beer pletok. Okay,
yeah,
we got it there. We got some help.
Yeah, I need some help. You have to edit that out. I've been practicing, but then got nervous and completely forgot. But the beer, ginger beer in Bogor was incredible. Soto Padang was probably one of my favorite meals. And I've had nasi goreng every day.
Okay.
Pisang goreng.
Pisang goreng. Okay.
Fantastic.
You know what, Denzel? I just asked you for your favorite food, and you end up giving me a whole list of menu.
Sorry, right.
So that's good for us. That's a good sign for us. Okay, stay with us. We will come back shortly after the break. You're still on Special Dialogue. I'm Luisa Kusnander, and we'll continue talking about urban farming with our non-government activist, Denzel Mitchell Jr. Now, being a non-government activist, I'm sure there are challenges and problems along the way. Can you share with us what has been the biggest challenge and how do you solve it?
I would probably say the biggest challenge for the work that we do as a social organization for the public good has been fundraising. Fundraising is very challenging, and it's constant work that exists in the same space of doing the actual work of supporting urban agriculture and supporting urban farms and advocating and teaching urban farming. So it's very important, but challenging in the exact same time of doing that work. And so I'm very grateful, very blessed to have a fantastic team that we're all working towards the same progress.
How do you think we can raise more awareness for people to support urban farming and the importance of it?
Yeah, I think continuing to promote urban farming, using platforms like this, and creating dialogues across the globe. I mean, I think that the Waisili Exchange and the Fellowship has, made that a very, very real thing. And I think that there's a lot more opportunities for farmers to travel here and share their knowledge, and then farmers from Indonesia and from all parts of Southeast Asia to go to U.S. and share. And it being also integrated into the school curriculums and making it something that's real and tangible for children.
Do you see urban farming as something that will grow even more stronger in the future, or do you see it actually depleting because of, like not enough lands?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two ways to look at it. In my heart, I hope that it's the former, that as we develop, we are more open-minded in thinking about how to integrate urban agriculture into this space. Because obviously we know that development has to take place. There's going to continue to be industrialization and construction, but how can we put green space into this building? How can we make this continue to be something that the people that use the space also are connected with vegetation? And from my perspective, Indonesia is doing that very, very well. I felt very comfortable everywhere we went, and quite distracted. You could ask our host. Quite distracted by all of the vegetation that was everywhere, and it was very, very well maintained and changing. We went to the embassy one day. There was this huge planting. Then we come back another day, and it was completely different. But it was lush and gorgeous. And I think that especially for Americans, because we don't see that a whole lot. If we did more of that in the United States, it would make urban agriculture something that people were thinking about constantly.
Based on your 1 week being here, I'm just curious, like what kind of knowledge do you get from your trip here? Maybe something that you bring back to the States, or is there any plans that you will plan in the States?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think oh man, there were so many things. I think that utilization of such small spaces. You know,
even smaller spaces.
Even smaller
here
spaces. You know, there were some similarities, but a lot of the places were even smaller, and there was just like so much profound production and so much care taken with the space and the art that was also integrated. So it made it a very, very attractive space. But then also people working in community. One of the most memorable things are the schedules that the mothers create to make sure that the space is taken care of. So every day of the week, someone is scheduled to work, and so everyone shares the work.
It's like a community.
Very community.
One, yeah.
Many hands make light work, as we say in the U.S. And I think because urban agriculture is not as popular in Baltimore, that there's, you know, the work that we've been doing is to create more farmers, but creating community and creating this like collective work model is one of the things that we'll bring back.
How would you encourage the younger generation to be into this urban farming?
Oh, I think for me, and there was a very small part of my career in developing school gardens, schoolyard gardens. And so having a garden that produces food inside the school, that then brings that food into the student's classroom, or even having some growing space that the children can interact with, I think is one of the first steps. But then also taking the children out of the school and taking them to farms, making it important to put children on a bus and take them to a farm and show them how food is produced, whether it be protein, whether it be honey, whether it be grain, and whether it be vegetables, and showing that there's food being produced right here in their neighborhood, right across the street from their school, and there's food being produced outside of the city, and that food that's being produced is coming back into the city and they're eating it.
How's the interest from the younger generation, considering, you know, the younger generation is all about media and technology and gadgets and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think one of the great things about urban agriculture is that it has attracted young people, but millennials that are, you know, that were in their 20s and are now in their 30s, and we listen to a lot of the same music. We share a lot of the same space in social media. I often get to lie and act like I'm much younger than I am.
Yes.
Right. But as many might know, I'm a little older than that.
You look young. No, you're
thank
good.
You. Yeah. Right. You know, but you know, we share a lot of the same music, and so creating content that shows urban agriculture, but it has music that younger people are familiar with and can relate to, I think makes that important. And for me, you know, when I first started, just children walking around, or young people, high school students, and seeing that like, oh, this is my friend's dad, and my friend's dad is cool. Maybe I would like to do that. And also a change that in understanding that this work is dignified, it's important. We all understand now that we need to eat, and somebody has to produce the food that we need to eat.
Do you see robots doing this in the future, perhaps?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No, this is human work.
Why do you say that?
Well, you know, this is a profession of passion. This is a profession of love. I think there is obviously always some place for automation, but the best food, whether it's from production or consumption, is made with love.
So it's not just about planting them, but
No.
you need to plant them with love, not just with water
and intention.
sunshine.
Plants, as we know, plants need more than just the nutrients. They need attention. They need a relationship. And you know, in a lot of cases, there's a lot of scientific cases that plants understand their relationship to their environment. And even though they know that they are feeding us, in a lot of ways, we are also feeding them.
That's a very interesting thought, coming from a farmer and also a chef.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much passion there.
Yes.
Now, what is your personal goal for the long run?
My personal goal is to create more farmers. That's kind of the shortest way to think about it. I feel like that I've been very blessed in my professional career to make some amazing relationships. I've made new and amazing relationships. And those relationships made me the person that I am today. And my repayment has been to share that same knowledge that farmers gave to me when I started to other people who also want to be farmers. And so sharing the knowledge, I want to be remembered as somebody who created more farmers.
That's great. And do you see the future where a lot of people will create more farms and create more food? How do you see that?
Yeah, I see that. I think that as people develop their space and decide where they want to live and where they want to work, they recognize that I can take a little bit of time and produce a little bit of my own food, or go to a farmer's market and support somebody that I have a relationship with, who I can see their spouse, I can see their children, and understand that they are operating a business to feed their family, and the work that they produce also feeds my family, and creating that relationship. And so I think that as we move forward in urban agriculture, but just in food consumption, just understanding the value and importance of food consumption, and overall, that we just develop a much stronger relationship. That as space and land is becoming more and more scarce, and the innovations in technology that have been used to produce more from a space, we learn that there has to be this symbiotic relationship with the earth. That we're starting to understand that there's no more land is going to be created, and so we have to take care of the land that we have, and we have to dedicate some of the land, even though we want to live here or we want to have a coffee shop or a shopping mall here, we have to have some land that's dedicated to food production, because if the people don't eat, they won't use the mall.
All right. As a closing statement, how would you see Indonesia's urban farm growing from here, from what you see?
Oh, wow. I see a great amount of potential. I see that all of the mothers that we have met have been incredibly talented, but then also very thirsty for new knowledge and new techniques, and that they're holding tradition, that much of the work that they're doing has continued throughout their families, and I think that their descendants are going to continue to practice that. And so I think that urban agriculture in Indonesia is here to stay. I think that the work that Rito's company, East West Indonesia, in providing seed for food production is very, very strongly supporting that.
All right, Denzel Mitchell Jr., thank you so much for sharing your knowledge here in Indonesia and to bring light for this topic, urban farm.
Thank you.
Here in Special Dialogue. I'm Luisa Kusnandar. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.